Hey good folks, I'm Unwrapping here for CG Tuts, and welcome to the 7th part of this tattoo gun tutorial. In this part, we'll finish off the UV layout of this model. Most of this part's unwrapping is very similar, so we can skip some parts in order to move on a bit more quickly. I've already went ahead and saved this file under a new title. So this is the tattoo gun tutorial part 7 in your project files. We'll first start off with one of these 3 pieces, either the yoke, the front spring, or the rear divider. Their unwrapping is very similar to each other, and I think we'll do the yoke. Let's first freeze its transformations. We'll go to modify, freeze transformation. Now let's drag it outside so we can work on it a bit more easily. First, let's apply to it the UV reference material. Right click, assign existing materials, UV ref. Right click, create UVs, automatic mapping. Most of it is already unwrapped very nicely. Let's bring up the UV editor and let's get rid of the picture and toggle on the shaded view. I would like to have all the bevel attached to the front and back faces and have just this strip divided. We'll first divide the strip here. We'll select all these middle edges, including these, and shift right click, cut UVs. Now if we'll switch to UVs, we can see that everything here is separated. Switch to edge and select all of these edges and all of the bottom edges here. Shift right click, move and sew UVs. We'll do the same for this side. Just hit G, and this side. G again. We'll do the same on the top. G and G. And now we've got separated pieces. Let's check out where these belong, and these belong here. Okay, we'll deselect these and click on selecting. Okay, we'll deselect this one here, and now shift right click, move and sew UVs. Obviously we need to unfold this, but we'll save that for a bit later until we get everything connected here. We need to separate this right part as well as this part and this part and this part, and I'll go ahead and do that, and we'll continue on after everything here is separated. Let's select UVs. We'll select some of those UVs, right click, select shell, and we'll move this out of the way so we can work on it a bit more easily. We'll select these edges, move and sew UVs, and we'll select the rest of the edges here, and that should include these and these. Move and sew UVs. Let's see, we got these, so let's hit G and G and G. Over here, these, G, G, and G, and I think that's it. Maybe this one. Oh yeah, okay, G. So that should be it. Now let's select the UVs. We'll select all the UVs here. Shift right click, unfold UVs, and that does the unfolding quickly and automatically. Sometimes it's the best choice, sometimes it isn't. You just have to try it. Now let's rotate it as best as we can. We'll move it here. Now we need to do the very same to the second part. Select all the edges here, shift right click, move and sew UVs, and let's see, we can connect these two. Let's hit G, G, and on the top as well, these two as well as these. We'll hit G, and maybe these, yeah, G, and these, G, and these, G. Okay. We'll select the UVs, shift right click, unfold UVs. Again, this time it's the best option. It's not always the case. And let's rotate it. Okay, and we can also scale it down to match the other side. All we have left to do is connect the strips here. So we'll select this edge, shift right click, move install UVs, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the strip is connected. We'll select its UVs. Let's make sure that the squares here are the same size, and it seems that they are a bit too small. I'm checking out the letters and I can tell they're a bit too small on the strip, so we need to scale this down a bit. Now they're the same size. Let's move these aside. We'll shift add these. These shouldn't take too much room. I think I'll scale those down. Now both these sides should have the same texture, so I'll place them one on top of the other. Save me some room here, and let's move these closer together. And I think I found the perfect place for them, which is here. Next, I would like to unwrap the armature bar. Another very simple shape to unwrap. I forgot to bring this one back to its original place. So let's zero out its position. Okay. Now let's do the same for the armature bar. We'll need to zero out its position. We'll go to modify, freeze transformation. And now let's move it outside so we can work on it easily. Focus on it. We'll assign to it the UV ref material. Create UVs. Automatic mapping. Now, frankly, I'm going to paint this entire shape in a solid color, but for educational purposes, I will demonstrate how to unwrap it. Let's bring back the UV editor. And we already got a very good unwrapping going on here. I would like to basically unwrap it in two segments, the rectangle part and the cylinder part. We'll start off on the left side. We'll select the left edges here, move over to the bottom to make sure we've got everything, and we need this corner as well. Shift right click, move install UVs. Okay, and that's selected a bit more than I actually wanted, so I'll deselect this one. And we'll deselect this one as well. Now let's hit G to repeat the last process. We'll repeat the process here. Select these edges. And same goes for the bottom. This one as well. Shift right click, move install UVs. And the last part, we'll select these two edges. And the last edge on the bottom. Move install UVs. Great. Now we've got the top and bottom of the rectangle to take care of. We'll choose the top part, and let's see, this one belongs here. Okay. We'll select these top edges. Shift right click, move install UVs. Okay, now let's continue on connecting here. Hit G and G. Let's actually straighten these here. You can do this manually, no need to unwrap here. And let's see, same goes for the other side. Select the edge here, move install UVs, and again, hit G. Okay. Now, as long as these vertices are selected, right click, select shell, and we'll rotate it back. Now we've got the bottom, which should be this part. So I'll select the edge here, move install UVs. Let's connect these edges here as well. Hit G and G. Let's fix those UVs. There's no real need to unwrap this. We can do this manually very quickly. Let's do the other side. Move in some UVs and repeat that process. Okay, great. Now, we've got the cylinder part. Let's move to the front view, focus on this, and I would like to select all of these faces here. I'm just making sure I selected all the, well, at least most of the cylinder. Okay, we'll need to select these faces as well. I want to select everything that belongs to this cylinder here. Okay, so we've got all of the cylinder selected. Right click, create UVs, cylinder mapping. We'll switch over to the attribute editor. We'll set the projection horizontal sweep to 360. Let's bring back the UV editor. Let's move these aside so we can see it and put it more clearly. I would like to select this face and create a planar mapping for it. So create UVs, planar mapping. It's a perfect square, 60 by 60. Okay. And we'll move this one aside as well. Now let's first deal with this one. This is close to perfect. And what I would like to do is cut these UVs here. So I'll select these edges, shift right click, cut UVs, and then merge these and merge these. Move and sew UVs. Now let's select these and this one as well. Shift right click, move and sew UVs, and that connected to the other side. And I'm pretty happy with this cylinder. All we have left to do is compare the different parts. First, obviously, the cylinder is too squashed. We need to scale it up on the y-axis or down on the y-axis until we get squares. Okay, that's better. Now we need to scale it to match the main part. Let's scale it down until we get similar sized letters. We can move it over here. And obviously we've got this top part, which also needs to be very small. And I'll move it, well, I'll just place it here. And we'll move this one a bit closer. So let's move all of these aside. And again, we'll select parts that we already have UV layouts for. We need to scale it down. And let's see, it can fit nicely here. Great, I'm happy with this. Let's move this one to its original position. Okay, so the last piece I would like to UV unwrap is one of the chords. Let's, for instance, choose this chord. Again, we need to freeze its transformation. Modify, freeze transformation. And we'll drag it outside so we can work in it easily. Focus on it, right click, assign existing materials, UV reference. There are two ways you can deal with this sort of shapes. The first one is the usual one. We can create UVs, automatic mapping, and let's see what we've got. And as you can see, it's a bit of a mess. We need to connect all of the edges, and then we still would have a very twisted and warped shape. Well, let me demonstrate to you the best way of dealing with these sort of shapes. Select part of this shape, and let's select this shell here. Right click, select shell, shift right click, and select UV lattice tool, and we get a UV lattice. By the way, if you shift right click UV lattice tool options, you can select how many columns and rows you get. And we can now move these and try and straighten it out. And unwrap it, create another UV lattice, unwrap it again, create another UV lattice, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it would be the best solution, sometimes it won't. But when you have such a twisted shape, which is opened as opposed to the O-wing, for instance, you would usually be better off creating a temporary skeleton for it, straighten it out, unwrapping it that way, and then setting the skeleton to its original position. And actually, if I wouldn't have deleted the CV curve tool that I used to create this one, I would be able to straighten the CV curve tool, since I would still have that connection, and that would have saved me a lot of time, but I didn't, and here we are. So what I'll do is create a skeleton. We'll switch over to the side view, move it aside so we can really focus on it. We'll go to skeleton, join tool, and let's start creating the skeleton here. Okay, hit Q to exit the tool. Now the joints here are very large and it's not really easy working this way. Let's scale those down. We'll go to display, animation, joint size, and the default is 1. We'll set it to 0.3. Okay, that's better. Let's move over to the top view, and the skeleton is created in the center of the grid, so let's move it over here. We'll need to position it correctly, and I'm moving joint by joint and placing it in the center of my wire. Okay, so there's our complete skeleton. Next we need to bind the joints to the wire. So we'll mark the wire and then shift select the first joint. We'll go to skin, bind skin, smooth bind, and basically now the wire is bind to the skin and we can manipulate it however we want. So we need to straighten this wire as best as we can. Let's switch to top view. We'll start off with joint 2 and try to straighten it as best as we can from the top and from the side view. The result won't be perfect, but we need to get it as straight as possible. At this point I'll pause the recording and we'll continue on after the entire wire is more or less straightened out. The wire is now straightened out as best as possible, and next we want to UV unwrap it, right? So let's bring up the UV editor and we'll select the mesh. Go to create UVs, automatic mapping, but unfortunately there's no real change here. We still have the same result. So what we need to do is delete its history. So we'll go to edit, delete by type, history. And now two things happen. We can create an automatic mapping in a more logical way, as you can see. And another thing that happened is that the connection to the skeleton is broken down. So all we need to do is, while the wire is still selected, shift select the skeleton again. Again, I remind you to select the root joint. Go to skin, bind skin, smooth bind. We'll select all of the joints and zero out all their rotations. And we've got our wire back with its new UV unfolding. And now we can move on to connecting these 4 strips here. So let's see. This side and this sides connect, only this one is reversed. So let's select these UVs here, right click, select shell, and we'll rotate it 180 degrees and we'll move it over here. Let's select these edges here without these, of course. Shift right click, move and sort UVs. Great. Next one is this one. Select part of the UVs. Again, select shell. We'll move it over. And we'll select the edges minus the top and bottom edges. Shift right click, move and sort UVs. And the last one is this one, which is upside down again. So let's select part of the UVs, select shell, rotate it. We'll select all the edges here except the top and bottom ones. Shift right click, move and sort UVs. And now we can select all the UVs here and unfold UVs. This part here suddenly ends and appears here. That would create irregularity in the sim, so what I would like to do is select these edges. Okay, all the edges here are selected, so shift right click, cut UVs, and I'll select these outer edges, just the outer edges. Shift right click, move and sort UVs. Again, let's select all the UVs here and unfold UVs, and wonderful. Now we've got a very easily paintable wire. The UV reference is also sitting on it very well, and I'm very happy with this result. Of course, we've got these, which frankly are not really important since they are hidden, so I can really move this one inside here and scale them both down to a very small size since they are really not important. Shift select all the parts that we have already unwrapped. We'll find a nice place for it. We can scale it down. I would like to place it here. Now, the wire is still connected to the joints, so what we need to do is delete this history. We'll go to edit by type, history, and we can delete these joints. We don't really need them anymore. Reset its position to 0, and that brings it back inside. As you can see, we've got the sim pointed out, and I would really like the sim to be more hidden than it is at the moment. So what I would like to do is I would like to separate the UVs in the middle and then connect the outer edges, so the sim would be on the other side. So I'll do that real quick. Select the edges here, shift right click, cut UVs, and I'll select the outer edges, deselect the top edges as well as the bottom edges, and shift right click, move and sort UVs. I'll select some of those UVs, select shell, shift right click, unfold the UVs, and now we can see the sim is virtually invisible, and that's because it's on the bottom. Now, if you don't plan on adding any texture to the wire, all this process is obviously really not needed. But if you would like to add, let's say, some text you sometimes see on these wires or some kind of a texture, this is a very easy way of UV unwrapping for this sort of shapes. That's just about it for this part of the tutorial. And so in the next part we'll move on to shading and texturing in Photoshop.